We met at a friend's game night, both of us arguing rules we hadn't read while laughing like we had. She was funny and quick, the kind of smart that lets a joke land and then tags it with a better one. I was 27. She was 25. We started seeing each other on Tuesdays for tacos because that's what her schedule allowed, and then Tuesdays bled into Thursdays and weekends, and by year 3 we had a library of small rituals that felt like home. We'd survived her finishing college, my temporary relocation for work, even a 6-month long-distance stretch when she took an internship 2 states away, and we measured time by phone calls that always seemed to end early. By the time we were ready to sign the lease on a place together, we had a shared note on our phones full of furniture links and measurements. We were at our favorite taco place, napkins stuck to the table from the last round of margaritas, sketching layouts on a receipt and deciding whether a sectional would dwarf the living room. Mia twirled a strand of hair, set her fork down and said, "Derek, we need to talk." My stomach sank. Nobody opens with that and follows with good news. She stared at the salsa like it could answer for her and then said, "I'm 25. I've only been with 3 guys, including you. I feel like I'm missing out on experiences. I'm too young to be tied down. I want to explore my options." Tied down. We were moving in, not getting married tomorrow. I told her that. She nodded anyway, reciting a timeline as if she'd already held the future up to a light and found counterfeits. But that's where this goes, right? Move in, engagement, marriage, kids. I need to see what else is out there before I lock into that. So I asked the only question left. Are you ending our relationship to date around? She reached for my hand. I moved it away. She said we could stay friends, and maybe after she'd had her fun we could reconnect because I was, her words, husband material. Just not yet. Husband material on layaway. I told her as calmly as I could, if you leave to explore, it's permanent. She laughed, actually laughed. Don't be dramatic. People take breaks all the time. I stood, left cash for my half of the bill and said, "Explore away, Mia. Hope you find what you're looking for." I went home and called the landlord. The deposit was in my name because she hadn't signed the paperwork yet. I lost $500. It stung less than untangling a lease later. That night I blocked her on everything. It wasn't a tantrum. It was a line. She wanted to explore. She could do it without me watching from the bleachers. 2 months of silence followed, if you can call a quiet house and a loud mind silence. Then the messages started circling in from the edges. An unknown number. "Hey, it's Tessa. Can we talk? Mia is really struggling." Delete. A LinkedIn message from her sister of all places. "Hope work is well. Random question, will you be at Brent's party? Mia says you two are taking some space." Taking some space like I'd boarded a plane with a guaranteed return date. Then came the coincidences. She appeared at my coffee shop, then my grocery store, then the used bookstore where I lose most Saturday mornings. Each time she widened her eyes like we were in a sitcom. "Derek, what are the odds?" The 3rd time I said the odds were pretty high, considering she knew my routine. She pretended to be offended and told me she shops there now. I reminded her she hates that store because the produce section smells weird. "People change," she huffed. "Exactly," I said, and checked out at self-checkout. Mutual friends filled in the rest. Her exploration phase showed up on Instagram stories. Different guy every week, clubbing constantly, a Vegas trip with someone from Hinge. I didn't watch. I heard about it like a song from a car at a stoplight. Loud enough to know it's there, not loud enough to sing along. Meanwhile, I was just living. I joined a rec league basketball team and remembered how good it felt to run until my legs asked better questions. I took a coding boot camp my company offered and found out I like solving problems that didn't have feelings attached. I got promoted to team lead. It's amazing what happens when your evenings are your own. One night after practice, I found her sitting on the floor outside my apartment door in my old college hoodie. She stood when I approached. "We need to talk." I told her, "No, we don't." She asked for 5 minutes. I told her she'd had 3 years and traded them for 6 months of exploring. She started to cry and said she'd made a mistake, that she'd dated and partied and learned I was the one she wanted. I laughed. I was the one she wanted now after the test drives. She said that wasn't fair. I reminded her of husband material and not yet. She admitted she'd thought I would wait. There it was, the assumption said out loud. I lied and told her I was seeing someone. I wasn't, not then, but the look on her face made a point I hadn't been able to sentence. She said she'd wait outside until I came to my senses. I called building security. They escorted her out while she shouted about true love and second chances in the stairwell, and the echo turned it into a chorus. The next afternoon she showed up at my office and told reception she was my girlfriend dropping off medication. Security paged me to the lobby. She held a sandwich shop bag and called me babe with a bright smile for the guard. I told them she was my ex and to remove her. My manager asked afterward if everything was okay. I said, my ex is having trouble with the concept of ex. He nodded in that HR-aware way that says, thanks for telling me. Please make it go away. Flowers arrived the following morning. A huge arrangement with a card that read, for my soulmate. Always yours, M. I left them in the break room for the admins and went back to my stand UPS. Then the social media campaign started. Because I had her blocked, she made new accounts and commented on old photos through mutuals, tagging me in memories from years ago. She posted a long letter about losing the love of her life to Pride. Wrote, he says he's moved on, but I know he still loves me. True love doesn't just disappear. My buddy Trevor sent screenshots and told me to ignore it. I told everyone the same. Don't engage, don't respond, don't give her ammunition. She found a new angle. She called my mother. Mom phoned me, concerned. I explained everything. She was quiet, then said, so she dumped you to sleep around and expects you to take her back? Oh hell no. I like that girl, but hell no. I'll handle it. Whatever my mother said to Mia's mother. The next call was from Mrs. Patterson, furious. How dare you turn your mother against my daughter? She made one mistake. You're destroying her. I told her Mia made a choice and so did I, and to please stop contacting me. She warned I'd regret it because Mia was the best thing that ever happened to me. I asked why the best thing that ever happened to me had left. Silence. Then she called me cold and heartless. No, I said, I'm a man who knows his worth. The calls kept coming from new numbers and borrowed phones. The voicemails went from breathy to brittle to unhinged. One said, I know you're home. I can see your light on. Another asked if the blonde from my basketball team was my new girlfriend. I filed a police report. The officer told me it was a civil matter unless she threatened me physically and suggested a restraining order. My friend Anthony, who's a lawyer, told me to document everything. I started saving every text, voicemail, and surprise visit, and built a file with dates and times and little notes about where I was standing when I listened to each one. When things finally blew up, it wasn't at my door. It was across a small table at an Italian place with a woman named Harper from the boot camp. Smart, funny, grounded, and uninterested in treating me like a backup plan. We were halfway through dinner when Harper's eyes flicked over my shoulder and went pale. She whispered, that woman at the bar keeps staring at us. I turned and saw Mia wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our second anniversary. She raised her glass like a toast and walked over, slow enough to make it seem inevitable. Derek, what a coincidence, she sang. I told her she needed to leave. She turned to Harper. I'm Mia, Derek's girlfriend. Well, ex, but not for long. Harper started to stand. I squeezed her hand and asked her to stay. I told Mia she was embarrassing herself. She said I was the one embarrassing myself with an obvious rebound. Harper laughed. Lady, whatever you had with him, you threw it away. Now you're stalking him at restaurants. That's not romantic. It's pathetic. When I reached for my phone to call the police, Mia lunged and knocked over Harper's wine. Red spread across white like a tide coming in. The manager arrived and told Mia to leave. She said she wasn't going anywhere because I was her boyfriend. I corrected him, ex, and asked them to call the police. Diners watch the way people always do when there's a scene, careful, hungry for a detail to repeat later. The cops showed up 10 minutes later, took statements from us, the manager, and a couple of tables who'd seen it unfold. They didn't arrest her but issued a criminal trespass warning for the restaurant and strongly suggested she leave me alone. As they escorted her outside, she turned and shouted, This isn't over, Derek, we're meant to be together. Harper handled the rest of the night with a kind of kind humor that didn't require speeches. We grabbed pizza after because the restaurant was a lost cause for romance. The mood was mostly gone, but she kissed me goodnight and said, Call me when you get that restraining order. I filed for the emergency protective order the next morning. A week later we were in court. I showed up with Anthony and a folder thick with neatly labeled evidence. Mia arrived with her mother and a lawyer who looked like he'd been hired off a bus bench. She wore a conservative dress, minimal makeup, hair in a bun. The party girl costume swapped for the good girl costume. The judge flipped through the stack, texts, voicemails, the incident report, the restaurant statements. Mia's lawyer called it a misunderstanding and said she only wanted closure. The judge looked over her glasses and asked if he'd reviewed the voicemail where Mia said, "I can see your light on." Even he winced. Mia asked to speak against counsel's advice. She gave a speech about 3 beautiful years and 1 mistake, about asking for space to grow and being punished for it. The judge asked if she had ended the relationship to, in her own words, explore options. Mia said yes, but I hadn't meant it to be permanent. The judge said, "Ma'am, you're 25, old enough to understand consequences. You ended a relationship." He accepted it and moved on. Your refusal to accept that has led to stalking, harassment, and an incident that could qualify as assault. Mia said she didn't assault anyone. The judge pointed to the statement about her knocking over a glass while trying to grab my phone after following me to a date. Mia started to cry. "I just wanted him back. Is that a crime?" The judge said the stalking and harassment parts actually were. Restraining order granted, 2 years. No contact. Stay 500 feet away. In the parking lot, Mrs. Patterson cornered me and asked if I was happy now that I'd humiliated her daughter. I told her Mia had done this to herself. She said Mia loved me. I said she loved the idea of me waiting where she left me. Anthony stepped in and told her any further contact would be treated as a violation by proxy. She called over her shoulder that Mia was too good for me anyway, which was a strange way to defend a person who'd just been ordered to stay away. The aftermath hit fast. Mia lost her job. Apparently showing up sporadically because you're busy shadowing your ex doesn't impress employers. Her Instagram shifted from party pictures to motivational quotes about surviving narcissistic abuse and rising from the ashes. Tessa passed a message through a mutual friend. "Mia's in therapy now. She knows she messed up. Maybe in a year or 2 you could consider." I told them no. Therapy is great. I hope she gets better. We are never getting back together. 3 months have gone by. The order seems to be working. Harper and I are still seeing each other and taking it slow. It's nice being with someone who actually wants to be with me, not someone who wants me as an option in case the field disappoints. She jokes that only quality guys get stalkers that committed. Dark humor, but it takes the sting out. Mom texts me once a week. "Thank God you didn't marry that girl." Dad says I handled it better than he would have. If I'm honest, if Mia had broken up with me like a normal person, "I'm not feeling it anymore, I want different things," I would have been wrecked for a while, but I would have understood. People grow apart. What I couldn't accept was the entitlement of asking me to wait while she tried everyone else and then treating my boundary like a twist in a movie I was supposed to clap for. When someone shows you how they value you, believe them. I was never her partner. I was a safe accessory she could put down and pick up when it suited her. I walked myself out. Best $500 I ever lost. It probably saved me from a divorce that would have cost me much more. In money, time, and the kind of peace you don't notice until it's gone. If you're hearing the speech about exploration and safety nets, listen to the part that hurts and do the thing that protects you. You are not a placeholder for someone else's curiosity. You're a person. Walk away even if they follow you. Especially then. The paperwork is worth more than their promises ever were. On the nights the apartment sat empty in my calendar, I noticed how quiet my place actually was. No half conversations over shows, no casual decisions about whether to cook or order in, no small negotiations about who gets the shower first. I missed those, and I missed who I was in them, the version of me that made 2 plates without thinking and knew which side of the couch was hers. Missing someone is slippery. It makes you rewrite the parts that hurt until you realize you're editing a lie. Work became simpler because it was just work. I stopped scrolling her socials and started spending that time on code katas and watching talks our CTO swore would change the way you think about concurrency. I don't know about changed, but I learned enough to ship features faster and mentor 2 juniors who reminded me what curiosity looks like. When the promotion to team lead came through, I almost texted her out of habit. I didn't. Anthony helped me build the evidence file the way he builds case binders, index tabs, dates, short summaries, even a printed log of every time security had to escort her out of a place where I was just trying to live normally. He said, "If a judge can follow the story without guessing, you're already halfway to safe." I believed him because he was calm where I wasn't. Court day smelled like paper and old carpet. The pews creaked. When Mia took the stand to explain herself, she looked at me the way she used to look at dessert menus, like a decision could still be made if the right words were said. The judge wasn't interested in dessert. She was interested in boundaries and the way we honor them even when feelings are loud. Hearing a stranger say, 2 years, no contact. Felt like someone finally locked a door I'd been leaning against. Afterward, I took the long way home. I passed the apartment we almost rented and stood across the street long enough to see a couple carry in a plant the size of a small tree. I wished them luck, not because I'm noble, but because I know how heavy a hope like that is when you're carrying it with someone else. I hope theirs is kinder, Harper, and I keep it boring on purpose. Coffee that turns into lunch, walks that turn into conversations you only realize were important when you get home and your shoulders aren't up by your ears. She asks good questions. I answer them slowly. There's room in that, and I didn't know how much I needed room until I had it. If you're where I was, staring at someone you love while they tell you they're too young for what you built with them, believe them the first time. Not because people can't change, but because change that starts by putting you on a shelf usually keeps you there. You don't have to audition for your own life. I'm not a moral of the story guy, but here's the only thing I'm sure of now. Respect is quiet and consistent. It doesn't ask you to wait while it tries on other futures. It shows up, carries groceries, learns your coffee order, and doesn't make you beg to be chosen. That's not fireworks. That's a front door you want to come home to,